I think the most important thing to learn in this game is how to position your ship. That, I think, makes a good player good and a bad player bad. That is the difference. It is not really aiming, it is all down to positioning in this game. And Vermont is one of the hardest battleships to position in the entire game because of how slow it is relative to its competition, and with how much damage it takes if you slightly misangle, and it's just a difficult battleship to position correctly. You often push in too much and you die, or you're too far back and then you're not helping your team. That's the problem. Like I talked about in one of my videos last week, I forget which one it was, the easiest way to know what you're doing wrong is to carefully look at your losses. Wins are harder, but when you look at how a loss happened, did you die early? In the earlier game, you didn't really have an impact on the whole length of the battle. You're playing too aggressive. If you, at the end of the battle, still have a lot of health, or don't have a lot of damage, you haven't contested caps, you haven't helped your team all that much, and you're alive at the end, maybe you're playing too passive. That's, in my mind, the easiest way to know. There's ways to know on winning games, too, if you're impacting the game well and that. But those are a little harder to look for, and they change depending on the match you're in, depending on the ship. But on losses, that is the easiest way to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Well, it's easiest to see what you're doing wrong. Just keep that in mind. If you're alive at the end of a loss, you probably could have played more aggressive. If you died early on a loss, you probably should play a little more passive. That's the easiest way to start learning. So Vermont, we spawn on the A flank here, and we don't have a destroyer. That basically means I can't play here that easily. I'm here supporting, though. I made the decision that I'm not really going to play on this side of the map. So my bow is already pointed away, getting ready to run, because the ship is very, very slow. But I'm not running completely away. You can see I'm trying to stay around 14-ish kilometers away from people. I still have a lot of health. I can tank a lot still. There's no point in me running all the way to where our Yamato is, for example. I'm also creating a nice crossfire with our Republic, and this Montana is showing a lot of broadsides, so in a perfect world, he would get hit pretty hard. That doesn't necessarily happen, but we're doing a pretty good job of stalling the enemy on the ACAP, because we know they have a few more ships than we do over here. That means we should win the sea side pretty comfortably, considering it's a 3 versus 4 or 5 over here. We're not quite sure yet which it is, but we should have an advantage elsewhere on the map. The other thing to note is they have more ships in the middle of the map too. So we really, really have a lot of our ships on the sea flank, meaning we should win that. So that's why I'm okay with giving this up as well. Just looking at all of these different positions on the map, you can kind of determine where the enemy is strong and where your team is strong, just like that. And then if you're on your team's strong flank, you really want to be pushing and pressing the enemy team. You have an advantage. At least in this game, it's on our C flank. And if you're on the flank that's weak on your team, that you know the enemy team is strong on your flank, probably try and play a little more passive like I'm doing here. I'm still trying to impact the game, but I'm positioning myself so that I don't get caught out and that I die. So it's tricky to do that all at once. It's a lot to think about, but over time, as you play this game, you're going to start to notice these things. That's what you really want to be thinking about in the first 5 minutes of the game, and that's what we're at. This is 5 minutes in, and these are the things that you want to be thinking about. Where's the enemy team pushing? Where can we push? What should I be doing on my flank? Am I on the strong flank? Am I on the weak flank? Yeah. Something to note about this replay, I did have MSI Afterburner up, so ignore the all the statistics data in the top left. I didn't mean to have that in the recording, but my software picked it up anyway. So I'm sorry about that, but it probably won't be on the next video. Now, Vermont is a special case because it's so slow. I've said that already. But it really can't play too aggressively. Even here, I'm starting to get overrun. Isn't that crazy? It doesn't seem like it, but I kind of am. The Thunderer south of B is already shooting me with HE, and this Kurfürst is 14 away from me. The Petro is 13, the Colombo is 13, and we got a Montana pushing up the one flank. It's close to this position being a really bad position. You can see our Republic is already running quite heavily. Venezia is dead. That means they're going to start focusing on either me or the Republic. It's likely that it's going to be me because I'm just slower. The Republic is pretty far away from them already at this point. He can just kind of run to the back of the map. But that's the reason we need to run. Our Venezia isn't too happy with us positioning in the way we did, but he didn't understand what flank he was on. He must have thought he was on the strong flank. And he obviously wasn't, because we had 3 ships and they had 4 or 5. So yeah, it's important to realize the situation that you're in earlier in the game, otherwise you end up dead like this Venezia did. Just thinking about the positioning of your ship, honestly, is going to help a lot. Instead of just kind of running in and just hoping that things are going to work out. That's never a great way to go about it. I understand a lot of people play this game casually, and that's totally fine. You don't have to, actively use 100% of your brain power when you're, coming home from a long day of work. You just want to chill and play a couple matches. But if you're interested in getting a little bit better, just try and think about those little things. Which flank are you on? That kind of thing. It will help you a lot. Aiming is not really that much of a big deal. With Vermont, though, if you're thinking of picking the ship up, or maybe you have this ship and you don't really like playing it, or you don't really know how to position it that well, right now we have a very important decision. This is a game-winning or game-losing decision right here. Do we go towards B to contest the Thunderer to keep him out? Or do we run with our Yamato around to the C cap? Which do you think you'd choose? It's a very important decision. Because one way results in us probably losing the game and likely ending up dead, and the other way allows us to possibly carry out the game. And that's a bit of a hint. So the correct answer is to go to C. If we charge into B right now, we've got lots of health. Yes, it sure looks like a good option. It's a Thunderer. He's caught bow in. We can have, a reasonable amount of support with that. Maybe our carrier comes over and decides to drop him. But the thing is, we'd be giving broadside to all the battleships in A. We would die, and our match would be over, and likely we would lose this game. So we have to go to C. As much as I don't like it, you can see I was already very much pointed towards the B cap, ready to go there. I can't. You can see we're starting to lose HP already, and the enemy carrier is here, and we would have likely died. So that's the reason. We would have died too quickly if we had gone to B cap, and the game isn't out of hand yet. That's the other important thing to notice. At the top of your screen, you can see the points haven't ticked that far yet, because nobody's really held that many caps for that long. So there's not a lot of pressure on either team to push that hard yet. So that's one thing that's really helping my decision in running away, essentially. We each hold one cap. There's one contested cap. It's a pretty relaxed game still. So it's important to keep in mind that there are times where you just need to make that play. That aggressive play to B. If the scores were at, maybe the enemy team was at 800 points and we were on 600 points or 500 points. Well, that aggressive play just has to happen. Otherwise, you lose. It takes too long to come around C. and you'll lose the game anyway, so you may as well try that play. But in this case, there wasn't enough pressure on me, so running towards C, helping our team secure this flank, even though this was our strong flank and we should have had it anyway. We finally get this cap, and this side of the map cleared, so now we can really focus on the enemy team pushing in. And the scores are pretty even. It's a close game still. Both carriers are still in it. You notice I haven't been struck at all yet by the carrier. That's one of the perks of being a Vermont. Your AA is good enough to where enemy CVs generally don't want to strike you. I don't even have that much for AA skills. It's really the defensive fire that makes this ship very difficult to strike. Throws out a lot of flat clouds, and they do a lot of damage. You're going to see that in a bit. But it's a nice perk of Vermont. It's slow, it's clunky, but you have amazing AA on this ship, and your guns are incredible. I'm sure you've seen that. We've been chunking people pretty hard. Getting, 30k salvos on broadside GKs, Petros that barely push out too far, punishing them very hard. It's nice. These guns are awesome. They're Ohio guns. They're Georgia guns, but you get 12 of them. Sure, the reload's long. And in this game, I actually am running reload mod. And I'm still getting these pretty solid shots. Now, that might be down to Deadeye, but during some of these shots, these really hard-hitting salvos I've had this game, honestly, I've been... somebody's been within my spotting range, meaning Deadeye is not active. So, I don't know. I think reload is just a little bit more comfortable on this ship. If you're very, very, very confident in your shots and that kind of thing, and you're okay with waiting a 40-second reload, it's probably better to run the accuracy mod. But for me, I don't like that crazy long reload. That's probably why I don't play this ship much, which is why I switched to reload. Here you can see me pausing and waiting. It's very important here. The enemy team is going to kill our Shimakaze. And this Columbo, I'm pretty sure, is going to greed to get his back turrets on the Shima. And he does, turning even more broadside to us. Sometimes that won't happen, and sometimes you just snap the shot out because the enemy ship will likely angle to you. Unfortunately, no Citadel, even though Columbo is very easily Citadelable. The Turtleback being overmatchable by every battleship in the game, that it faces at least. Yeah. Now here, the AA is quite wonderful. You're not going to really quite see the damage number, but I'll let you know. That was a 30k hit. Yeah. That was 30,000 damage to those planes in one shot. So, yeah, even FDR, the easiest carrier in the game to play, the one that anybody can pick up and just do well in, even that one has to, avoid flak bubbles every once in a while, because these ones definitely hurt. So, that's why you don't want to strike this thing. It's not priority number one. People can definitely get strikes through. You're going to see that in a little bit. But the main thing is that you're not the easiest target to strike. You're the most difficult battleship to strike, in my mind. So the carrier is probably not going to come after you. And that's one of the really nice things about Vermont. If you're someone who wants to play battleship, but you just can't stand having the carrier just constantly come over and basically kill you as you're pushing or doing whatever you're doing, Vermont's definitely a good option for you to play. Assuming you can put up with the longer reload and the poor speed and maneuverability and the not so tanky hull. Although this game we do get a lot of potential damage. I think I tanked quite well this game. But that's mainly being disciplined and staying angled. One of the most important things you can do when a team is pushing into you or you're pushing into a team is to prioritize the guy out of position, obviously. The guy who's pushed in too far or something like that. But if they're all kind of playing as a team and kind of grouped up together, the most important thing you can do is target the guy on the outside, right? And what that's going to do is you don't have to show your entire broadside then to a bunch of people to get your guns off on one of the more centralized targets. It's pretty important to keep your bow or your stern oriented towards the majority of the enemy team. And that's where sometimes people can get too greedy, and the kind of micro positioning of their ship, they show broadside just to get a shot off on somebody, when they could have just been shooting the guy on the outside flank, and they could have been angling to everybody else. But that's kind of little things. This is more about the big scale picture, the big picture on why we're doing what we're doing. And again, you can see our team is winning on kills now, and now I decide it's time to go in, okay? There's still really not that much of a rush. The enemy team isn't going to tick out on caps. It's going to be a timeout on the timer. 20-minute game. Isn't that crazy? A lot of the games feel like they're speeding up and they're being really one-sided these days. But these kind of slower, fun games do exist still. I really enjoy these games where you have to play well the entire time to get your team to a win. I enjoy this a lot. And I'm really happy that this game happened in Vermont, of all ships, because it's a perfect example of a ship that's difficult to play. But when you play it well, it can do pretty incredible things. Having that 30 millimeters of overmatch and crazy heavy broadside are really, 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 really nice. And you can see this aircraft carrier is actually going to go strike a Colbert instead of a Vermont. Isn't that crazy? We must have scared him with that AA puff that last time, or the other couple times ago. There you can see dispersion being not so nice to us. That's where dispersion module probably would have been a little bit better. But Vermont really is strong in these games that last a long time, because it's less about DPM, it's more about hitting your shots into the right targets. And that's what this ship is very, very, very good at. If you're wondering why I have been playing this ship more. And if you're wondering why, Kings of the Sea is coming up, and I don't know if I want to play this ship or not yet. So I've been trying to feel out this ship and how it plays and what I can get away with and what I can't get away with. It's important to know those things before going into a tournament. Yeah, so I'm not sure yet, but if you want to watch those, they'll likely be on Twitch near the end of the month. Usually on the weekends, I believe. So look forward to that. It's pretty fun to play in a more competitive environment where everyone on your team is working together and they're all good players and that kind of thing. It's a very different vibe than random battles, and it's a nice change for once, you know. Here we do end up getting the kill on the Montana, and basically we win now on one cap. And you know, not everybody would know that, so typing to your team sometimes that we win on one cap is a good thing to know. This score timer at the top of your screen can really help dictate how you should position your ship. Do you need to be pushing or not? You notice I turn away so that I really don't take a fight with the Thunderer. I don't need to take a fight with this Thunderer, because we win. Now, that's nice to kill him, obviously, but we win on one cap, so there's no point in taking that fight. And you can see score timer now shows us winning on time, but before, their little timer there was lower than our timer, but our timer was highlighted. So whatever the highlighted timer, the bold timer is, that's who's going to win the game. And it does take into account when the game ends. So it knows that the game here is going to end in 40 seconds. And it takes that into account in determining who is going to win on points. It's a really handy mod to have if you're trying to get better at endgame positioning and pushing or holding, that kind of thing, knowing what to do. It's handy to know if you're going to win on the current situation of caps or not. And that's what that mod really does. It's a pretty cool one. But yeah, that's kind of a pretty basic positioning example. I didn't really get into everything I was doing, but maybe that's some things you can look out for in your own game. Some little tips here and there on maybe just to start get you thinking about what you maybe should be doing and maybe you shouldn't be doing. I think that helps a lot. Is just even starting to think about it will make you a much better player overall. So nearly 300k damage, 3.1, nearly 3.2k base XP, 30 plane kills. Pretty awesome game, I would say. If you're curious what I'm running on this ship, this is what I've got right now. Oh, actually, I'm taking an AA skill. You can see I don't really look at my commanders all that often, but I am running Deadeye. That is probably why Reload mod is feeling okay at longer ranges. Gun Feeder, this is really to help with destroyers at close range. If you're getting YOLO rushed by a DD, you do have the capacity to nearly one-shot some destroyers. So if you use this, it can be good. The rest of the skills I don't really think make that much of a difference. That's why I like to run that one. Grease the Gears is definitely a wonderful option to have if you don't take the AA Gunner skill, and you probably don't even need to take AA Gunner, given the power of defensive AA on this ship. Grease the Gears would be a great one. If you really want to say screw carriers, Expert AA Marksman on top of AA Gunner might be a good option, but this is what the build will look like for me. If you're really, probably once Deadeye is removed, the skills will look like Gun Feeder, Grease the Gears, Adrenaline Rush, and then I'll take Emergency Repair, Concealment, Fire Prevention, and Basics of Survivability. So just a full tank build. That's likely what most of my battleships are going to look like after Deadeye is removed. Pretty standard, one-dimensional build. And that's going to be for basically every ship. Great diverse rework we got on our hands here. Main battery mod 3, I am running Reload. It does bring it down to a slightly more comfortable 35.2, but the 11% dispersion is a lot. So I don't know. I don't know which one to pick, but either one is good. Concealment, you know, you need better concealment on a ship like this, honestly. More tankiness is always welcome. I'm running range mod, but that's mainly because I like shooting cross maps, and I find that I can actually hit them. So not everybody can do that, and definitely running turret traverse is a great option if you find yourself not really shooting at long range that much. Damage control system. I'm running auxiliary mod because my guns don't really get knocked out, and I want to keep my AA alive as much as I can because that's a nice strength of this ship. So that's the Vermont, kind of a bit of a positioning guide, things to think about on positioning. That's kind of what I was wanting to make this video on, and I hope you learned something. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.